I'm Mike Costello, and I'm here today with Dr. Freelander. And today we'd like to talk to you about this moment is as it's meant to be. You know, every moment of our lives is exactly the way it is supposed to be. It may not seem that way at the time, but each circumstance, each situation, each experience is exactly what we need at any given moment. And isn't that a wonderful assurance that we have?
Yes, it's very reassuring to know that we don't have to program too much. We don't have to look too hard. Just be. And you know, if we would learn to just simply be, we would be so much happier in life. But most of us, and I certainly would include myself, can do that. When we do, we know pure happiness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you made that last statement, I was thinking about that little saying that, you know, most of us understand that we're human beings, but we actually behave as though we're human doings. And we're always trying to do something. We're trying to decide how things should be. We're trying to be active. We're trying to set the stage. We're trying to plan. And of course, there are things that we need to plan for. But this being is so important. And of course, in our philosophy, we spend a fair amount of time working with people, both on the spiritual level and in our counseling work, helping people to be present or centered in what we call the now.
Yeah.
And to be in this moment, and to be in this moment with the people around us, and to be consciously in this moment, not waiting for our turn to talk or to do, but instead to be in the moment. And the moment will bring to us exactly what we need.
Yes, and we don't then have to worry. We don't have to worry, period. And we don't have to, it makes life so much easier. Everything in life is so much easier. And sometimes we forget, if we call ourselves short and just really look at what we're doing in our lives, then it just seems, life seems so much easier. And I know that when people get health problems, very often it's caused because they've not been able to relax and keep their consciousness in present time. They're spending so much time worrying about the future. They spend so much time regretting this and that and the other thing in the past, when neither are where we need to keep our consciousness. If we just let the past be, it's gone. So let it go, and the future will take care of itself. So a lot of people think that's too simplistic. It isn't, is it?
No, the greatest truths are the simplest ones. And understanding that life isn't that complex. And yet we struggle at making it complex. And as I talk to people and as I speak with groups, so often people will make mention to me about how complex life is and how stressful life is and how burdened life is. And in fact, it is each of us making life that way. I think we are so tired because we fail to live the moment, we fail to rest in the moment, we fail to have some repose in the moment. And most of us aren't going to have any repose until we're laid out. And of course, then we'll all be nice and peaceful, although we all know that life is eternal, and so even then, some people will probably keep on going much faster than they need to go. But in our daily lives, we need to work on those things that take away from the stressful environment. And one of the things that takes away from the stressful environment is to be centered in a peaceful presence and in some kind of spiritual foundation. And of course, you and I have spoken a lot about that on this program, and we work, of course, in the church, and it doesn't really matter what church or what faith, but people need spiritual underpinnings, and those spiritual underpinnings, hopefully, are going to bring to them the peace of the moment and the peace to be able to deal with circumstances. That, of course, is a key to what our spiritual reality and dimension is about.
Yes, and we see that borne out as a total truth. in the lives of people around us. And even those who come for counseling and are having some obviously they're having some problems in their lives, you can tell it there too. If they have very critical, serious problems, then they're not undergirded with that basic spiritual aspect of being. And when we are, then we're more loving, thoughtful, kind, and compassionate, and we don't expect so much from other people. We just accept that everyone is functioning at their own level and at their own personal consequence of the moment. And so when we do that, then we're happier and we're far better off for that. And of course, if we start our day with a quiet communion with God, and some people meditate, some people pray, some just align themselves and are centered, but whatever works for us, we need to figure out what does work for us and do that. And when we do, life is so much more beautiful and also more simple. And life doesn't have to be all that complicated. And sure, when we're in any type of business, we get unpleasant surprises. If you're not in business, you get unpleasant surprises. But we can cope if we have the undergirding of the spiritual aspect of being.
And that really brings about the ability to realize that every moment that comes to us is exactly what we need. And so often we'll either in lectures or in our counseling say that to people, and they recoil a little bit, but every one of us is exactly where we need to be, and at every given moment of time. And there is not an appointed time or experience to which we are moving. Of course, there are experiences to which we're moving, and there are fulfilling events that are going to unfold in our lives. But what we're talking about today is that understanding of each moment being as it is meant to be. And that goes for the good times and the not so good times. And it never ceases to amaze me how many people believe that if I just do this or that, or if I'm just good, or if I'm just something, that nothing bad will happen, that no difficulties will come. And every moment is as it's meant to be, even in our suffering. Our suffering and our pain is in its perfection brought to us at just our point of need, and it fulfills such a wonderful need. And I'm just thinking now of the number of people that we've worked with over the years who have had terminal illnesses, and both you and I have done a lot of work with the terminally ill, and how many people we've worked with who are terminally ill, some of whom are healed, some who go on and make the transition that we call death. And out of that suffering experience, out of that most debilitating of experiences, when they come through the grieving process, through the shock of the experience in the moment, the diagnosis, and even through the agony of treatment sometimes, medical treatment I'm talking about, then they're able to say, I got so much from this, and so many wonderful things happen. And if we just allow ourselves to be open to that, so it's not only that each moment is as it's meant to be in happiness, each moment is as it's meant to be in our laughter and in our tears. And I think we don't need to avoid either of those.
Yeah. Yes, every aspect of being is often inevitable, and it's always inevitable one time or another in our lives. And if we could look at life in that fashion, then we wouldn't resist illness, and we wouldn't resist things happening in our lives that are inevitable. And also, we wouldn't be judgmental about other people and think, well, I wonder what they did to deserve that. Well, we could never know what they did to deserve that. It may have been a very wonderful thing that they did. And this is part of the process. Because life is a process, and death is a process, and coming back again is a process. So as we go through the process of living and dying and living and dying, we, in our own lives, don't know why certain things are happening. So certainly we couldn't know what happens in other people's lives. So it would behoove us to not be judgmental about other people at all. And then we would be happier and more free. And also to not say, woe is me and why is this, when things happen, but just accept. And you and I have discussed at various times how people don't feel pain nearly as much in their lives, in their bodies, if they don't resist, because it's in resisting that they create the pain. And I've seen it happen so much with hospice patients, with other people who are ill. And Jesus said, resist not evil. So, and I'm sure that was the meaning back of that, don't you?
Absolutely. That non-resistance, there isn't a battle. It's not a fight, and it's not a struggle. And so much of our lives are filled with struggle. And if we would let go of the struggle, then I think we're able to embrace the good things that are going to come from each and every experience. And so many good things do come from every experience. And the idea that you touched upon too of death, we die over and over and over again. We die to our youth dies, our relationships die, our jobs die. In counseling and working with people, it's amazing sometimes how many people are just surprised that they're going to have the difficulty or the ending of a relationship or a job. And most of us, for most people, certainly in the active years of life, in the middle years of life, life is spent in family and work. And in both of those instances, there are going to be negative and positive experiences, and there is going to be an end to that experience. And so it isn't as though that we need to live from the standpoint of always expecting the death of that or the ending, but that we understand that it's part of the process.
Yes, understand that it is inevitable. And as we know that it's inevitable, then we don't resist it. And as we get on in years, we worry and are concerned because our body is falling apart or things are happening in our bodies and minds that we don't understand or that's not too comfortable. But on the other hand, we resist going when we're young too. So if we look at life as a continuing process, then I think we're more comfortable with that. And also, and it shows in our faces, it shows in our demeanor when we accept life as that, well, life is as it should be, and don't grieve over what is normal, what happens, what's inevitably happening to everyone. But that shows up in all ages, all phases of life. And I've seen a lot of young people be dreading age more than the older people do. So I guess it depends on the individual, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And that's as it should be. Every moment of our lives is as it should be in our experience as well. We'd like to pause at this point in the program and offer you the opportunity to receive some literature so that you can continue to study the ideas and concepts we're sharing with you.
Like to offer you the opportunity to receive one of these free booklets to further your understanding of the new thought message of confident living. Each month we will feature a different booklet which will be mailed to you free and postage paid. Simply address your request to Confident Living at P.O. Box 7726, Long Beach, California 90807.
We do need to let things happen, don't we? And just let life move as it is to move, and we need to move with it. And as we do, we become more limber in the process. And I think that has to do with not only our physical being, but it has to do with our mental being, and it has to do with our spiritual being as well. And one of the things that we touched upon in the earlier part of the program is that that youth is fleeting, and that's probably a good thing. The older I get, the happier I am that maybe some change is coming about. But we need to understand and realize that all of the experiences and all of the moments come together to create this magnificent tapestry that we call life.
Yes, and that the moment at hand is created by whatever's happened in the past. And so we can cherish what's happened as being a part of our existence. When I read about people who go back to other lives and bring forth memories of other lives, it's really interesting to see what was important to them when they go back. And there are many wonderful books available along those lines. And one is Many Wonderful Things. It's written by a lady and a hypnotherapist. And it's interesting to see how at the end of when the hypnotherapist took the subject back to other lives, then he always asked at the end of each one, what did you learn in that life? And it's always interesting that what they learned had to do with being kinder and gentler, or more accepting and non-judgmental when it pertained to other people. And so we can take lessons from others' lives and just be, and accept that these things are going to happen, and not resist too much.
And that reflection also works in just the moments of our lives, just the experiences of our life. That reflection, and we have gone through several programs now, and haven't really touched a whole lot on the meditation, but that's rare for us. But as we meditate, when we find ourselves in times of confusion, or times of questioning, or times of stress, or times of difficulty, or times of great joy, we do find that allows us to more fully take advantage of the moment. Isn't that true?
Yes, and at our church we have the weekly meditation meetings, and I always enjoy those meetings so greatly, because a great deal of energy is created when a group gets together in an altruistic way in that fashion. And also, the conversation is always so uplifting and enlightening, because everyone is there to send out light and love into the world, and that's the general purpose. But then what happens is we each gain so greatly just from hearing the ideas expressed of the other people. So I would suggest to anyone who hears us that not only do they meditate daily, personally, but also be with a group, form a group, or join a group, so they can have group meditation. 35 years ago, I heard Arthur Ford. Many people who will remember Arthur Ford. He wrote several books, and his guide from the inner planes was named Fletcher, and he helped a lot of people in their lives. And he said that what we need to do, in addition to attending our church, whatever the church might be, is to group together in meditation groups, so that we would help each other in that way. And I've seen it happen over the years. So whatever we can do to make our lives more serene and filled with all positive aspect of being, and leaving behind all the negative aspect of being, then that's what we need to do. But I think that not only the personal meditation, but the group meditation makes a big difference.
Absolutely, that sharing aspect. And of course, in today's society, we find ourselves and we find others so often being isolated. And of course, when we deal with older people and with the elderly, we find that isolation is one of the precursors to loneliness, to depression, and even maybe to dementia. And so, and not always, there are clinical reasons for that, and we understand that, but it is important for us to be associated as much as possible with others. Now, there are times of solitude that are useful, but there are also times when we can unite with others. And when we do unite with others, the moment, or the experience of the moment, becomes so much stronger and more vividly validated.
Yes, and there's programs in nursing homes and so forth, places of that type, where they have children coming in, and they have the grandmother, grandfather roles and they have children coming in, or where the children in the hospital, they have adults coming in, the surrogate grandparents or surrogate parents, to help those children and to help the older people. And that's such a wonderful thing. And they do it with pets too. A lot of doctors and caregivers, I think that's the ticket. So it's just not being alone. And we all know from experience, whether or not we live alone, we know from experience that if we spend too much time alone, then we do become rigid. I know I said to a young friend of mine once, she said, "Why do you stay so busy with all these different activities in the community?" And I said, "Well, I think I do it so I won't get weird." And she says, "I think you're already too late." and so but I think that's true, that we get weird if we spend too much time alone. And also, we need to spend a certain part of our lives caring for others. And whatever our role in life, we can spend a certain amount of time caring for others. It wouldn't always be the same factor, the same thing for everyone, but we can look to see how we can care for others. And it adds so richly to our lives. And I think if we can spend some time with children, that's the best gift we can give ourselves. And if we can just spend time, and if nothing else, we can go to a playground and watch the children play and just feel their energy and perhaps interact with them if the parents don't mind if we do. But whatever works for us, we need to find out what that is and do it so we interact with other people. Because as you said earlier, that's one of the most important things we can do for ourselves.
And as we do that, then we are able to be enriched by the moment. And even as you were speaking, I was thinking about people who just are immobile. And even people who are immobile have the ability to do a lot of things. They can make telephone calls, they could write notes if they can't do that. They can think thoughts, they can surround people in prayer and positive, affirmative emotion. And there's nothing that complicated. You know, some way we've made everything, as we talked earlier in this program, such a complicated thing. And so often people will come to us and say, "Well, show me how to meditate, or show me how to pray, or show me how to do this or do that." And we're happy to do that in terms of certain mechanisms and mechanics. But there's no set way that's always the way.
Yeah, it's the feeling.
It's the feeling, it is. And so we need to be free in the moment to fulfill ourselves and our expressions for others in the moment, in whatever means works for us, and not necessarily rely on others, and not have to be necessarily instructed. Now, I'm not minimizing instruction, because there are certain things that it helps to have some instruction and structure to, but there are many things that don't require any at all. And we actually do cheat ourselves, I think, by saying that we're not competent, we're not qualified to do that. And of course, when we talk about interaction with other people, there's no qualification there. All we have to do, we can do it in our minds, we can do it in our physical presence, we can do it in our spoken word, we can do it in any number of ways, but just the key is to do it, isn't it?
Yes, and when we look at how other people interact, then we see those people who are outgoing are so much more happy than the people who are reticent and hold back. And I think that it's the feeling people put into the energy they put into whatever they do that makes all the difference in the world. And that's why you were saying, as you were saying, that just giving them instructions is not the answer, because it's the energy they put into whatever they're praying or doing or saying that makes all the difference in the world, not the words themselves. And if you say anything by rote, it has no energy. But if you say it freshly and fully from the heart, then it creates great energy, and that energy helps others, helps those people around us. And we need to be spontaneous, and we need to allow our bodies and minds to exercise spontaneity, and therefore we're creating the energy that's necessary. And the energy is like the fuel that burns whatever, the electric lights or the candles or whatever. that energy is what does it, isn't it?
Absolutely, and that energy is endless. And we have this idea that energy is limited or finite, but in fact it's limitless. And the ability that we have to touch other lives and to embrace the moment is limitless. And that enthusiasm is so tremendous and wonderful, and we never get tired from it.
No, and people around us don't get tired if we have energy. And I don't mean frenetic energy where we're just, but just if we're up and show that we have energy. And therefore, we're showing interest in other people. And we're not just self-centered, and we're not just like sluggish. We're exuding energy. And again, you can see that in children. And it's so lovely to see children play, and they're so happy and so spontaneous that we can take a lesson from those children. We can take a lesson from other people. We can observe who do we most admire in life, and or people who have lived and no longer are living. Who do we most admire, and then emulate them, each in our own way. Not try to be that other person, but use that same technique for living in our own right. And caring for others would be high on the list. Those people who just care about other people make all the difference in the world, and we can all do that.
And as you were speaking about children, I was thinking they are probably one of the greatest examples of accepting the moment.
Yeah.
Because the moment is the moment. There's no questioning. There's no analysis. They're just here. And in the moment they are happy and they're sad and they're however they feel, and it's okay to cry and it's okay to laugh and it's okay to have fun and it's okay to do all of these things. And we can see that in youth. And then as we move out, as we become older, we become more sedentary, more set, we become more weary, more tired. We become more sluggish, and that attitude is really what has changed. And that reality of being in the moment and accepting the moment as being just as it should be, and that's the way it is. That with a childlike expectation and love of life, that is vitality at its best, isn't it?
Yes, yes, and to have to live expectantly, and to know. And I know once I said to a meditation group, tonight we're going to talk about and exercise our immensity consciousness, and they thought that was really weird. But you know what? That's life, and in its fullest, is to exercise our immensity consciousness, and to know that nothing, with God, all things are possible. Everyone believes that, but then we fail to live up to it, don't we?
Absolutely. And with it, we have limitless potential and limitless possibilities, and every single moment of your life and my life is as it should be. And we hope that the information that we've shared with you has been useful, and we look forward to seeing you next time.